Welcome back to Related Conversations with Melanie. Today we are sharing perspectives on a pretty taboo topic. We're talking interracial dating. I'll be joined soon by Loni and Drew, but first, please hit that subscribe button if you haven't subscribed to our channel so that you never miss an episode. And with that, let's get into it. Welcome, guys. Welcome, Drew. Welcome, Loni. Love the glasses. Looking lovely.
Thank you.
All right, so let's get into it. We're gonna start with a question because you know that's my jam right there. So we're talking about interracial dating. Let's start first of all. Does anybody do people interracial dates on this podcast personally? Because I don't.
I've played in the snow, but I've never been in a full on relationship with a white girl. Actually, lies once.
I was about to call you the fuck out because you're a fucking liar. Because
Once.
no, I'm not going to shut up. Okay, yeah.
Played in the snow is crazy. First of all, also, there is many ethnicities.
I was gonna say that, but right. But you know, it's like automatically goes to black and white. I feel like, what about the other races? I wonder how they feel when they hear us having these conversations. They're like, well, what about Chinese or Hispanic? Like, because those are also interracial. Like,
okay. So then, saying as someone I've dated a Vietnamese girl, I've dated a Puerto Rican girl, I've dated a Dominican girl.
Okay.
What?
You look at me? Don't look at me. You black so fucking day, but you know you like to eat from around the world. So what's up?
That part.
I have a large palate. Leave me alone. So I've dated, if that's the case, yes, I've interracially dated a few times.
Okay.
But hey, I love it at home.
Let me ask you a question before. So, you love it at home. Do the women at home ever like speak on your checkered past? Like, do they ever feel away about the fact that you done went to the fucking Asian restaurant and you got some fucking chow mein, and then you went to the Hispanic restaurant and got some arroz con pollo? Like, do they ever feel away about your very vast smorgasbord of women?
Honestly, no. The funny thing is, like, a lot of what I get back from it is just the fact that, okay, I have dated in so many places, but I have such a passionate desire and love of black women now. It's like, okay, you've been to other places and you still realize where you wanted to be. So it's never. I've personally, I can only speak for myself. I've never had a woman pick apart the fact that I've dated other races before. Considering being from New York, as a black man in New York, I feel like at some point in time, you're going to end up dating a Spanish woman in some way, shape, or form.
That's some bullshit. That's a cop out. That's some bullshit.
It's not a cop out. I'm just saying it's an honest reality only because of curiosity. The reason why I dated where I've dated around is because I had a curiosity. I had an interest in the people that I dated. So that's where I choose to at least inquire. I'm interested in other cultures and understanding other people in different capacities. So dating other races taught me a lot. I mean, being raised in New York taught me a lot as well about other cultures. So I had appreciation for it. So did I dabble a little bit? Yeah, I did. But like I said, I like it back at home. Thank you for the eye roll.
Dating interracially is a choice, and I don't think where you are, whether you're in New York or somewhere else, I don't feel like that gives what you think it gives. Like, it's like I could live in, a man could live in Alaska, he could live in fucking Colorado, Texas, New York, California. If you choose to date someone outside, it's not like, oh, I'm in New York, so I'm down. That's not the case at all. It'd be one thing if he was in Mexico, okay, where there are Mexicans, and then it's you. I think that's where you get a little leeway. You understand? But other than that, it's a choice because you being in New York, there is a vast majority of women, and you chose to indulge in that instead of looking in one lane. And it's not villainizing you. I'm just saying, don't cop out. So
no, I never take it as a cop out. I honestly, I will tell you right now, the biggest reason why I did it is a conversation I had with my uncle when I was like 14, 15 years old. And my uncle always told me, you don't know what you like until you try it. He said, so as far as when it goes to women, he said, date as many different type of women as you can. You'll understand where you want to be when you realize where you don't want to go. And honestly, I took that to heart.
You know what I equate that with?
What?
Like, oh, you don't know what you like until you try it, but you never tried dick and you know you don't like that.
Hey, why you gotta go there?
Because it's the same, it's the exact same logic. Like, Loni, am I wrong?
I regretfully have to agree.
Exactly. You don't need to try things to know you don't want it. But I get it. I get it. You know, do you? Let's let Loni answer because you in the hot
Yeah,
seat.
please. You're just
You
lining me up
said
right now, but
you just got
appreciate you.
torched on the hot seat.
Please, Ronnie.
So, yes, I have dated different ethnicities. I would say, like, predominantly though, probably landing in the I
The
guess
pink,
as Drew would call it, in the snow. I don't know how I feel about that.
the pink dicks. Snow bunny is the snow. It doesn't work. It doesn't hit the same. It's the pink, the peckers.
Ah,
Pink, I would say the way pink pecker is wild. Okay. But yes. So it's more like I mean there wasn't like I don't have a real follow up to that. The answer is yes. In short, like
I had a
I
follow. Just to bring a little seriousness here. So, like, when you are dating people who are not your own
yeah,
people,
ethnic background.
right? What about the worry about being fetishized by them? Like, because there are a lot of the times I've been in that situation. Let me. I got something to contribute here. Well, I'm a black person now. You know what I mean? That took a little learning, to understand my history and the things, the way real life hits you as a black person to be able to understand my people is my people. Now, while I've only dated black people, that I felt like there was a point in time where I was like, oh, people are people, da, 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 da. And then this white guy who looks like Mark Wahlberg was interested in me. You know what I mean? And I was young and
Marky
I
Mark? Not
was
Marky Mark.
no, I
Okay.
mean, he's fat now. I saw him on Facebook recently. It was like a friend suggestion. Never gonna happen. But right. But and I went out with him a few times and like it was exhilarating because I don't know, I'm looking at him like you're a white guy and I'm out with a white guy and it's a fun story to tell. You understand what I'm saying? So it's just like, oh, like that. But I also know for him, I was a fetish type of thing for him. It wasn't that I was a woman he was trying to get to know in that way because I remember I was going to a dinner party with his friends and he was telling me what he told his friend like, oh yeah, oh, I'm bringing someone, and they're like, well, who are you bringing? Because I guess everyone else was coupled up, and he was like, he's bringing me, and he was like, oh, what's she like? She's like 21, black. You know what I mean? The fact that he mentioned it like that, when he said it to me, it wasn't a negative thing, but it definitely was like, this is like a a shock, that type of moment. It was like, oh, this would be interesting. Like kind of the same way I was viewing him. So like, but I've never dated one seriously where we was going to be anything and it was going to matter, and you guys have. So like, what about the worry about being fetishized by that person?
I think you can suss that out pretty early on. Like you can I feel like just based on certain conversations, you can tease that out. Like I can usually tee that up pretty quick. If we're going to talk about it, go straight to the dating app. You can tee that up really quick. People have said some weird things. That's all. But I feel like in your situation, it was like almost like you guys were both fetishizing each other. Like, oh, what's this like? I wonder what it's like. It's like this, the other,
I mean, I don't know. I feel like I don't think that you're necessarily incorrect, but I think it was like for me, I was just like having fun, and for him, it was because I was black, and you know what I mean. And he wanted me because I was black, and me, I was going out like, bitch. I used to go on dates every fucking day. You know what I mean? So, Yeah, I don't know, but I agree, you know, I'm having like little sketchy connection issues. So if I miss something, that's why. But I agree with the dating act thing. Like you fucking remember, bitch, when I matched with one dude. I forget what I think his name was Nick. I wish I remembered his last name because I would out that motherfucker. And I thought he was a light skinned black guy. You know, because everybody be playing in the snow and shit. So I figured he was a product of, you know, some jungle fever. And turns out the nigga wasn't. Immediately, like we were talking, and it was like about our kids. He had like an 8-year-old daughter, and I had a 9. I don't know. Our kids was the same age at the time, and we were talking about that. And then immediately, he like sends me this link to like, oh, Ebony BBL taking white cock or some shit like that. And that's when I realized this is a Caucasian. Like immediately that is fair. I know you remember because I probably called you like Drew. But yeah, I think that
I
shit
do
is.
remember that.
So what about you, Drew? Because as a black man, y'all get fetishized more than anybody as easily. White girls will tell you, "I love BBC." I can't say the words. My son is here. Or you know what I mean? Or God, it's so
No.
shitty. But you know, it's like, what do you have you dealt with that? Do you feel like?
I'll agree with Lonnie. Like you can kind of suss that out kind of quickly with a lot of people that you deal with. I will say this though, it's one of the biggest reasons why I say like I like it back at home. Like being a black man, the one thing that you want to know and understand is that your partner understand what life is like for you. Nobody understands that for black men than black women. But for the women that I have dealt with from other cultures, that's been a benchmark for me. We may come from different worlds, but you have definitely got to understand what life is like for me. So if I'm dealing with somebody who is fetishizing the aspects of just you're dating a black man, you're not somebody who's really made it that far with me. And I've definitely come across those type of women and I walk away immediately. But for the women that I have dealt with from other cultures, it's it wasn't that type of energy. It was very much so you are at least attempting to understand what life was like for me, even though you never really would.
Hmm.
That's fair.
So,
I mean, like, part of it's your social environment, though, too. Like, I think I grew up in Clifton Park. It's predominantly white at the time with which I went to school, was not super diverse, I would say, at all. Um, like there was a pocket of us. Like you could like pick us out. The black
Yeah.
kids at Shen. So I like as a high schooler and into adult dating, I've never I hadn't previously experienced any sort of like feeling that I was being fetishized. Fet-
Mhm.
fetishized? Is that the word? Is that
It is for now.
anyway,
it's a ugly
but
word.
like as an adult, like I think going into dating now, it's so weird because obviously you're out of high school, you're out of kind of like the adolescence and like blinders are off and people are just like how they are, you're in your 30s. And I've had like similar experience, not the sending me the message of like the sending me to like some, obviously fetish porn site, but the but the like odd questions, people that like I know not to match with immediately because I'm like, there are certain triggers to me that, like, not even triggers, there's certain things that like you pick up on, red flags that you kind of hone in on and they kind of like, kick rocks. It's more of just there's certain things in people's profiles that I can pick out that I'm like, this person's going to be a problem. And I chose to engage one time because I was just like out of pure morbid curiosity, like how is this conversation going to go? And this one white man, he had like all these profile photos, but it's all like just headshots of himself and then like one picture with him and his mom. And I was just like, this is most certainly not the one. But on paper, let's see what his like thing is, and it's all very generic. So out of curiosity, I matched back, and the first thing, it was just very normal conversation. Then he's just like, "So you like white dudes?" And I was just like, "I found your profile interesting, and I matched with you, and you're white, so I guess I like what you're sharing." And his response was just like, "Good, good girl or something effing weird, something fucking weird. And I was just like, I knew. And then I was just like, oh yeah, how do you figure? And then he continued to go on. I was like, okay, cool. And I eventually just like reported him, but I wanted for him to tell on himself like all the way. So I could be like, okay, like this is
See,
why you're right.
wait. Let's see, Lonnie, you're not wrong because there are some people who will tell on themselves in just like the first kind of few instances and interactions. I've never really felt it, but like you said, like as an adult, you can reflect back on a few situations. And there are some women who I talked to in the very beginning, and one thing that pissed me off so much was I had why they always want to ask if I could rap. First of all,
Because you
that pissed me off so much. Yes,
because
they
you a
asked.
nigga. That's what niggas do. They rap and they play basketball.
I was about to
Thank
say,
you.
I was about to say
First of all,
basketball.
I played baseball, I played soccer, and I sing. Okay, none
But
of
you
that shit
a
fit.
nigga. So in these not black people's eyes, what you are is you should be living up to those stereotypes. With you playing basketball, with you fucking rapping, with you
Yo,
selling drugs or coming from the ghetto, you are never going to be different just because you're different. You are just another nigga to them. You
yes. That like I had to look back and realize like yo those were some instances where I came across. I'm like yo, it really was the stereotypes, it really was the idea, the awe, the I remember one white girl I dealt with at one point in time in my life. I was an adult at this point, but I knew with her coming at me, Shorty, you only coming at me because you want to piss your father off. I'm like I could feel that coming off of her, like you really don't live here because growing up where we've grown up, we've seen, you know how we say there's white people and there's people who happen to be white.
no, nobody says that.
Oh, there's plenty who do, and I understand the difference because I've seen white people who are stuck in that idea of what black people are being based upon what's been told to them, and you're stuck in that idea. And like I could feel that coming off of her when she came at me. And I was just like, you like if your father were to find out that you dealt with me, Shorty, he'd want to have your head. That's the only reason why you're here. You're doing this to piss your father off. You're here for excitement. Like there's no genuineness in that. Like in that moment, and that's why I said, Lonnie, like, and people like that, you can suss that out almost immediately. And it's just like you're not even the individual I want to deal with.
Yeah. No, I get that.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Like knowing that these are things that will come up, that you have to sniff out, that you have to navigate. What makes dating over there desirable? Like, why, what makes it worth jumping through the extra hoops, navigating these unnecessary avenues just to possibly be with someone who you have to decide if they are going to be one of them that accepts you or allows you to be a human? Or what makes it, what makes that so attractive to even decide to play in that area?
I think for me it's more, oh sorry, go ahead. You go
No, go
through.
ahead.
Okay, I was just gonna say, I think for me, it's more of just like up until the last like 4 years, I'd say, like I have not, or maybe that's like extreme. Maybe the last like 5 years, I haven't seen, as far as like dating app, anyways, right? I haven't seen black men interested in me. So like I match with people who match with me, and if white men are matching with me, and there's something in their profile that brings me to speak to them, then like I will engage. Like I think my bigger thing is like men are men, women are women, and also like you're a product of like environment, social circumstance, like a whole bunch of things. Culturally, like my parents are Jamaican. So like I was never like, oh my God, I must marry a Jamaican man. I was like, okay, I'm gonna focus on school, and then, what comes next comes next. But like I grew up in a predominantly white community. So I think that it for me then and now, obviously I don't think that created a huge pocket for me or a huge like barrier for me or something, like a hoop to jump through. It was more of just the fact that like this person is interested in me, and like if I find them interesting back, then I'm like, okay, let's see where this goes. I think
Yeah,
there's only very few circumstances where I was just like, oh, this is not ever
Yeah, that's a
going to
constant
work.
thing, right? So if you meet Ted tomorrow, these are things you have to suss out, right? And it's like, I don't know, I guess maybe because you always dealt with it, it's not something that seems like it weighs on you. But like for me, like if I met, Ted tomorrow, or if I even met fucking Jing Hu or some shit, and I have to do that extra work, that is just something that is going to be like, I'm not doing that. Like first of all, I don't want to do any work when it comes to a man at all. So the work that we naturally have to do, the work that we naturally have to do to connect with them, it's just like, yeah, that's enough. So to add that extra layer, because now we're not the same race, it's just like it's just completely unattractive, unnecessary,
So
desirable.
so let me say this. I feel like, and Lonnie, I will agree with you 100% because I feel like for the moments in which I did, it wasn't the race. It was the fact that I'm dealing with somebody who saw me in a way that nobody else did outside of race. Like, there was a connection in the moments in which I did. If I literally sit and think back to every time I dated somebody outside of the African American race, that individual in particular saw me or connected with me in a way that nobody else around me at that time did. And
I'm sorry, you,
because
you can I'm sorry, but are you saying that you're saying outside of race? Are you saying you can remove race for this?
it's not that, it may be that in those moments, I was looking to be seen in a certain way. And reflecting back on my own past, going through what I've been through, I know that in those moments, I know what I was going through. So for the last time I did this, last time I had an interracial situationship, I was dealing with somebody at a very dark point in my life where I was looking to be seen in a certain way, and through everything, she saw me in that way. She comforted me in that way, and she was there for me in that way. I didn't see race. I saw the one thing I was looking for. And from there, we connected, we grew, and we built from there because I was looking for something personally at that point, and she had it. The race didn't carry
Allow
didn't
me,
carry weight at that moment.
because I know you and I know how you felt when you dated I don't even know what the fuck she was. The one, I think she wasn't fully black or whatever the case was, and that bothered you. And you was like, "Oh, I just want to be with a black woman again," right? But then you fucked with women
Oh,
after that, right? And two of them, and one of them was very impactful for you. So how can you go from, "Oh, I didn't see race," to race being a big determining factor on how you continue relationships? Because those two things don't match.
at that time, at that point, I can admit I was only focused on the part of me that was hurt and the hole I wanted to fill. I wasn't looking at situations full circle, not the way that I do now. Those things I know. Going back to that particular situation, yes, I spent multiple years with someone who was not black, with a woman who was not black. And at that time, one thing that I learned was there were some things about just being with a black woman, somebody who already understood my culture, understood my thought process, my understanding. There were so many things that I missed. It wasn't that I took away from her and what she did give me during those years. It was that there's some things that's just natural, that's just fit right at home. And when you don't have them for an extended period of time, it feels good to have them back. And to me, it showed me how pivotal that those were.
So
So
then what made you fuck with a white girl again later on if that was such a
I was
awakening moment?
hurting. It was a
I'm
dark
talking about
time. I ain't gonna lie. I was going through a lot. Look,
I'm
it was
talking
ugly.
about I'm talking like 2024. Like, what made you be able to intermingle with another white woman or at any point in time if you had this epiphany after this dark time in the past?
Oh, I know what time you talking about. You know damn sure I was playing around. Stop it.
Boy, get the fuck out of here. And even you're full of shit. You're full.
You knew damn sure I was playing around. Stop playing with me. You knew I was.
So we had a technical difficulty, but we're back. And Drew wants to resume our argument. So what's up?
Hell yeah. Nah, go ahead, Lonnie. What you want to say?
I just, as someone who has no prior knowledge of what you guys are talking about, can you share with the class?
Okay, so That was someone who found me. I did not go look for them. Did I
When you
choose
say
to ever?
found you, like sought you out,
Yes, sought me out. This is somebody
young
who
black
sought me
man,
out,
Fuck
who
doesn't matter.
I knew
Craigslist.
20 years.
What the
No,
fuck doesn't matter if you meet her, you meet back up with her 20 years later after you had your epiphany from your deep, dark time. You cannot sit there and say, oh, I had an epiphany that there's something that black women give to me that I just can't get and I just want to be here. I want to be home. But then you go back to the snow.
Wait,
I
is it
can
was the
go.
same person? This was
I
like a
can
spin the
go. No,
block,
no, no, no,
like
no.
20 years
I
later?
can. No, no. She came back like 15, 20 years later.
And he
I
left
can
her.
go
And
play
he
in
left
the
her.
snow.
And he
I
left
can go. I can go play in the snow and still stay at home.
I hope I'm
I
teaching
never took that.
because
I
notice.
never took that situation seriously. Remember, at the time that she showed up, and remember, I told everybody this. I was actively single. There was nothing coming out of that equation, and she knew it walking into it. And I told her that walking into it, I had zero intention of staying there, and she knew that. But she still played her cards and lost. It's not my
You know
fault.
what the problem here is because I hear what you're saying and whatnot, but I think it's because you was being a fuckboy because we hear you, right? But I also know it's the shit that you was saying to her, and I know the way that she felt and the way that she was responding to the shit you was saying to her, and it don't match the shit you saying here. But I'm gonna let it go. I'm gonna let it go. I'm not. I'm gonna let it go because you full of shit, full of shit. So now
Whatever.
let's get off of Drew and his fucking cap ass checkered past. When you are with these not black people, and I guess for Lonnie, I really wonder this with you because as you said that nonsense. No, Drew said it, but the whole thing like it's just your default because it's been there your whole life. Um, how often do you think of race when you're with your Caucasian kings?
So I only more recently started thinking about race, and it only came up like a few
Chip?
years. I, it's I don't know if the difference is because of my like I don't know what the difference is really from my perspective, and like now I gotta like figure out how exactly I mean. So my parents are Jamaican. They met here in like Connecticut. I grew up in a population predominantly white. Like I didn't know about HBCUs until I was already in college. Like there's a lot of culture here in the States that I wasn't in. Huh?
This is like child abuse. Oh my god! But
For real, you're
like,
deprived, baby. I'm so
damn.
sorry.
But like when you think about your first, like when you think about like college, you think about like anything like that. Like I think about all of the things like that kind of like led me there and the dating pathways, all this kind of stuff. Like I dated, I think I dated a black kid in high school that was also a kid that was raised predominantly around white kids, white families,
Tokens. Yeah.
neighborhood. Like we had fellow like black families like at church, also in Clifton Park. So I mean, I don't know, product of the environment, whatever the case may be, but I don't think about it because for me, I'm always trying to match what I'm looking for, like in a person in general. Like, what am I looking for in someone that I think value wise we'll match? So it's not like I don't look and I'm like, okay, this black man might be it. I'm like, this man's attractive in general. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I don't think about it super often. I think about it more now. I mean, I think the only circumstance I've ever been in that I was just like, wow, was that Hinge conversation that was super, super weird. And I dated a dude for a long time and his mom was racist. So like and it's something that I had to figure out myself. You know what I'm saying? And so now with dating, a lot of those things for me, a lot of those questions that you ask when you go on dates, it's like for me it's just like, do you have any like, you know, or any closet racists that like you're aware of and are just
Yeah,
trying to be trying to be cordial because family, because that
But
won't work for me.
like
You
a
no,
don't have
because
any like
because a
people
lot
that are like anti-LGBTQIA, like, because that won't work for me. Like, I just, if it's not a part of like, if there are any values that, ooh, that that are outside of just kind of what I hold important, that's where it lies for me. It's not necessarily like the color of it all. And of
so
course, I have my own light issue.
wait,
Sorry.
well, hold on, let me ask you a question though, because it's like most people, and especially white people, don't believe that they are racist or that they have any type of discriminatory prejudice, mindsets in them. And I think 98% of them in America do, just because of the way the society has been branded. Even if they're not necessarily like waving a fucking swastika and supporting Trump, you can find something in there. You remember our good friend, that white girl? It came out and we didn't know, right? And it's like, it's not surprising because I don't expect that from anything different, right? But it's like if you go on a date with this person and you say, "Oh, do you have any like closet racists?" Or you're like, "No, my family's cool." Da, 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 da. Like, besides the fact that skepticism should be there, when you start dating this person, and you find out they come from a family that views you as inferior, because that's what the racism is, right? What do you do then? Do you just think like, oh, this person is the exception to the racism and you just deal with him and not his family? Do you leave? Like, what do you do? Because that's insane to me.
So it wasn't his whole family, it was just
Right. But what
the
do you
mom.
do with his mother? You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure he loved his mother.
Well, like that's the thing. Like, that wasn't ultimately the reason that we like, broke up. It was relationship stuff, but it changed my purview on dating in general.
see,
Hmm.
I've had a girl whose father, who I met this man, talked to this man, shook this man's hand, and then found out the things he said behind closed doors. Now, the only reason why I was even okay with still interacting with her is because I knew she didn't feel the same way her father did, and that his comments pissed her off as much as it pissed me off. Um, like I'd known her for years, so I didn't buy into what was said. But to know at the end of the day, that's the man that you come from, and that's what he's saying behind closed doors. Like that's how he feels about me. Um, it has always made me question. And to be honest with you, that's probably one of the biggest ways. And the thing is, that was with the white girl that I dealt with. One of the Spanish girls that I dealt with, her mother felt the same way. Like when she found out her daughter was dating a black man, her mother was not okay. Like I've dealt with it on more than one occasion, and the only thing that has allowed me to continue to deal with that particular individual is knowing that that person doesn't feel the same way. At the end of the day, if I'm choosing to be in a relationship with this person, understanding where they may come from, it's this person that I'm choosing. It's this person and their understanding and their beliefs and their heart that I'm choosing to be with. So if this I do trust and this I do know and this I understand, then this I'm comfortable going with. Understanding the way that I feel about comments made by their particular family members. Now, if there's an indifference about how we deal with that person, then that may hinder what we do going forward. But that hasn't been an issue for me. If I've ever stated, look, if that's how they feel, then that's how they feel. I understand how they feel. Just end the story. Do not put me in that person's presence. I understand that, like for the white girl that I dealt with, okay, I understand that that's your father. But I knew she separated herself from her father once he had made that statement. So I felt like she stood with me at that point. So that allowed me to continue going forward. But it does become a question with almost any person you deal with, especially just being black. That's a question you deal with anybody who's not, anyone else who's not. Sometimes even
Yeah.
with people who
Have
are.
a certain level of naivety to go into this and think that you're not going to run into somebody in their group, whether it's their friend group or their family group. Everybody in the fucking world has some type of prejudice, discriminatory, racist outlook when it comes to Black Americans. And Loni, like your family is from Jamaica, but you count as a Black American because you're American and your skin is brown, right? Every place in the world, in different countries, different people from other countries that come to this country, every single one of them have discriminatory thoughts about us, whether it's their own or propaganda or something there, or whether they act on it or not. And I think it takes a bit of naivety to think that you're going to go into any type of interracial relationship and not have to deal with that on some level. I
No,
just think
you're,
to
you're,
I so I
right.
disagree. I think
you
I think it
disagree.
is, yes, it's going to be something that you have to think about, but I don't think it's not the case for every environment. So it's not something that like I run into often, but it was an experience that I had, and that has colored how I navigate
Do you think
dating
that because you
interracially.
grew, do you think that because a lot of your life is intertwined in white people and their culture, and you're so used to them being in such huge influx in all of your facets of life, that you miss microaggressions
Oh,
because
I
you
absolutely
like,
do not miss microaggressions at all. The
no,
reason I found out about the reason I knew that his mom had an issue with me was because of microaggressions. She wasn't someone that was just like, I don't like Black people. She was
most
treating me a certain type of way, and I felt it. Like
So,
it was nothing that she did was overt. And it could be very much like, the person that thinks they're not racist but they are racist. I ultimately obviously had this conversation with them and called it out separately and privately, but that was when it was already over, at that point. Like I was already out the door, and I was just like, listen, like, by the way, this person's probably going to date someone else who looks like me. And part of the issue with it was, part of her thing was, it wasn't anything about me. It was kind of like based on her preconceived notions about whatever, because of how she was raised. She, even like just how she was raised was very different from me. Like
she's white.
my my well, I mean, like, socioeconomically, like my parents both made I would say, sizable more amount of money, that more I would say they made more money than her parents would have and did. And so she grew up very different from how my parents grew up and how I grew up. So, like, her preconceived notions were based off of, I'm assuming, her family. Parents ruin dating for kids. I'm going to tell you this. Like, I stand on that. So, but I will just say that my thing was, I can understand that, like, she had a different upbringing or whatever the case may be, but she also had a little bit of like a thing. Like, I introduced her to my mom, and I think she wasn't expecting my mom to be,
I don't like that.
like her senior
hold on a second.
in
Let me, so let me say.
experience.
So let me say this. We do also have to account for locale and, like you say, your social settings. Growing up in New York, as we did, New York is more diverse than a lot of people give it credit for, especially when you find yourself in other places. And let's be honest, as this world has grown to what it is today, those were microaggressions that we saw before. And it were microaggressions because you're usually dealing with people who are more understanding of a variety of people. But find yourself in a place where you're only dealing with 2 to 3 populations. Those microaggressions ain't so micro. It's a lot more blatant in moments like that. And I feel like in those scenarios, in those situations, we would see that particular family member, we would see that a lot more prevalent. It wouldn't just so be like, okay, you would see things a certain way or she would treat you a certain way. It would be a blatant, flat out statement. I don't want you dealing with this individual. When it's just a little bit more in your face that there are things that are this way and things that are that way. But when we come from a melting pot where we come from, even if you may have your beliefs, you deal with more of a diverse set of people, so you almost stomach it a little bit more, only because you're used to it. growing up where we grew up, dealing with what you may have dealt with, even though his mother, she may have been subtle with it, she's only subtle with it because she's used to seeing people who look like you. She doesn't necessarily like you, but she's just used to seeing people like you. But she still has her beliefs. She still has her understanding. And she just can't blatantly do it or express it because she knows there's so many more people who look like you that are around her. She can't behave this way, but she
So
feels it.
I do want to say, huh?
I just feel like you guys are using a lot of words to like explain a thing that just is a thing. You know, like, oh, the socioeconomic this, and she's not used to seeing people. Like,
It's true though. Like
it
part
seems
of her part of her experience was the fact that of how she was raised. And like that's not on me, that's on her. That has nothing to do with me. But her issue was that she wasn't concerned about us dating. She was concerned about the longevity of it. She was concerned about what about the kids?
She ain't want no black
What's
babies.
it gonna
She
be
don't
like?
want no black babies. End of story.
That's what I'm saying. She's like, what happened? What about your kids? They're gonna have
racist thoughts. Like making
that's the blatant
I didn't say it's not racist. I'm saying
there's no understand. Like I feel like, oh, understanding it doesn't change anything for it. You understand what I'm saying?
But it's not that I don't
that reason, but it still is, and that's.
I don't think I took away from that. I don't think I said that she was not racist. I don't. That's none of those things I said. I'm just saying that's what the situation was. It wasn't like I don't like you because you're black this whole time. It's I don't like you have these thoughts or you have these feelings and you're not saying anything and you're dealing with me because your son's dating me, but now you're seeing that this is much more serious and it's continuing on, and now your argument is what about the kids? And then it's just like, wasn't expecting my mom to have a certain type of job. A lot of things. And, that ultimately was the end of it, when I called her out for it. I called it out a few times, but it was for her son to deal with. It wasn't for me to deal with an adult. Like, I have a very separate thing. Like, I love family. Family's important to me, but like, if this is a part of your family, that's not going to make my life a happy life. It's going to be me constantly thinking about what this person is either feeling and how they would make my child feel if it came to that. And so that's kind of like where I'm coming from with that.
So I, as much as I do get that, I understand that. For the girl that I dealt with when her father made that statement. Now, the one thing is she already had.
What did he say though? What was his statement? Mine was never.
Exactly. The statement was never given to me out of her knowing how I would respond. It wasn't even fear of children going forward because she already has previous children from a man of color. So he already has colored grandchildren. That's not even a concern.
What is it?
I say children of color. At the end of the day, his grandchildren are not all white. They're not Italian as he may have wanted them to be. He's already got to deal with that. And the fact that he's already dealing with that, but yet still had a statement about my presence in his daughter's life. She refused to tell me exactly what the statement of only had a reaction for me. She spazzed on her father, separated herself from her father because of the statement that he made about me. And it wasn't just specifically about me. She realized how generic and how general that statement was towards black men as a whole. She had never dealt with that or had heard that from her father before, and it was kind of enlightening to her. She only brought it to my attention because there were pleasantries exchanged between me and her father when he and I had met. This is a man who I felt we had got along with, not realizing he was playing in my face at that moment.
I refuse
and that's why she chose
I refuse to believe that was the way that went. And I'm not saying you're lying. I'm saying she had to be lying to you. This woman could not have 2 kids or a kid or 2, however many, by some other nigga, and her dad never let nothing come out. And now magically you were the pin. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. That's why you cannot trust that they will inform you of who in their family could be a problem if they're not overtly racist. Because white people, especially white people, tend to look at racism as overt acts, overt words, and they're not just that. But there's no way her dad could have been so overtly say something racist like that about you to her, and she spaz out, and it's nothing's ever come out before. People are not that fucking complex in that way.
What was the relationship with her child's father?
They actually still speak. They have a co-parenting relationship.
I'm saying what is okay, but what is, did they ever like to Melanie's point, like, so did he get along with the supposed?
Actually, pointing that out, actually, now that's something I do not know of.
Okay.
I'm not aware of whether he ever got along with her first child's father. I don't know.
Okay.
Okay, so let me move us on a little bit. When you are with this, I'm just gonna call them significant other for the sake of not saying something that popped into my head. But when you're with this significant other within your own culture, like, what is your take on that? Like, when you're with them and you're in black spaces, how comfortable are you with your white person in black space? And I guess that's more for Drew because your default space, primarily is a mixture, or or you're usually in a minority, Lonnie. But like for you, Drew, did you find yourself assimilating more, and when y'all spend time together into her space? Because I think I saw a thing, and I find this to be true, regardless of what kind of relationship you're in, you always spend more time with one person's side than the other when y'all doing stuff like that. Did you find, and racially it tends to lean towards the white people, like you tend to have to assimilate more into their life and their, I'm not going to say culture, but their lifestyles and their things that they do, as opposed to usually the white people being brought into ours, barring special occasions. Not that it doesn't happen, but it happens in the reverse more often.
It was actually, it's kind of interesting because for the white girl that I dealt with, I was more me bringing her into my culture. For the Spanish woman that I dealt with, it was actually more me being in their culture. Ironically, I was first of all, I love food, and I love Spanish food, so I feel like that's the first reason why I really just jumped into the equation. But I like to learn about other cultures as well. Spanish people have a very rich culture, so I've dated a Puerto Rican, I've dated a Dominican, and I wanted to learn more about it. So I found myself more a part of their culture. But for the white girl I dealt with, ironically, she was more a part of mine.
You brought around your mother?
Nah,
No,
I never did that. Nah, I never did that.
because
Ironically, no. No, here's the funny thing. My mother knew who she was. My mother knew she existed, but my mother never met her.
Because your mother popped the shit out of you?
Probably.
Because y'all know good. And that's another thing. Like, why is it okay to play and try on these other races that you don't plan to take serious, that you know your mama not going to fucking approve of, but you still want to be out there doing these things? You understand? Because it's like, you see what happens when her dad don't approve of you and how you feel about that. But knowing your mom, I mean, obviously we are a bit more accepting in our culture to a fault, but why is it okay for you to try on this other race? Like, essentially you're wasting this person's time if you're not just, fucking after the club one night when you met and going about your different ways.
To be honest, just for me, that was one I'd have took the hit for.
What that mean?
My mama would have whooped my ass, and she would have just had to whoop my ass. Trust me, if I was going to have to deal with that, it was going to be one that was worth it.
Oh, this is the one that was like your soulmate.
That's how I felt at the time.
Boy, you is just the most nice nigga I ever met in my goddamn life.
I'm a Pisces. Leave me alone. Stop judging me.
You know you're a Pisces. That's how you felt at the time, and that's how you remember it too. You don't not that didn't go away. Life went in a different direction, but don't minimize it. Don't do that. Don't do that.
I think, like, yeah, to that point, it's just if you felt a type of way about that person, like, it doesn't serve anyone to minimize it. in a way that it's just like either you guys were hooking up or you're dating. Like either your plan was for it to be something short term, which I hate that response in a dating profile, looking for something short, open to long, like that's stupid. Like but I guess like if you're young, sure, that that makes sense, but
I
like
can
if
just
you didn't see anything there, like if you didn't see a future there would be no point
um
for you to meet her parents, so then why waste that person's time? Or
to be honest
or
with
they
you, for
or
that situation, there was definitely a future scene.
okay.
There was.
So if
But
you
like
had
Mel
kids,
said,
you consider your kids
my
black or mixed?
what?
If you and that white girl had kids, would you have considered your kids to be black or mixed,
My kids are black.
even when they with their white mama?
You still black.
What about you, Lonnie?
I it's so funny. I've had this conversation because I dated someone who was I don't know what you want to like biracial,
Who
multi
calls
like
himself mixed? That's what you can say. Just he called
I
himself mixed.
honestly no, they didn't call themselves mixed.
He called
They did.
himself mixed to me. The name.
Oh, he didn't call himself so he's never called himself mixed to me, but I think it's because of the nature of the conversations we had.
Mm.
Um, it was more like sometimes it's just easier to say it that way, but like but my thought on that is that like I would my kids would be I would say my kids would be black. I mean, you can't if even if your kids are white passing, they still have to understand that there's still a difference from you being, I would say, what is it, whatever they call it, white passing or whatever the case might be. And I don't think
Police,
my kids would never look white passing.
if the
I don't
police pull
think,
you over, what color are you?
huh?
If the police were to pull you over, what color are you? That's the gauge.
Are you saying do I ask that question or did they have to ask themselves that
You
question?
No,
just
that's
saying.
my
Because
gauge on determining. When Mel asked
you
me
have
if
to
my
have that
kids, even
conversation
if
with
they're out
black
with
kids
they
no
white,
matter what.
exactly. So if Mel asked me if my kids was out with they white mama, they're still black because if they were to ever get pulled over by the police would look at them and assume that those children are black. So I will teach them black.
So
I
okay,
agree.
I hear that, right? So now here goes my thing because I've had this conversation. I remember me and my son's dad had this conversation, um, just out of nowhere. When you are dating a non-black person, especially you, Drew, who you love black women, blah blah blah, all of that good stuff, right? Like, how does your blackness or your black pride, like, can you be considered like pro-black or have that level of pride when you are dating, especially when you're dating white, or especially? I'm just curious. I want to know what you're gonna say.
This is where I do get conflicted. I'm not going to hold you because there, of course, I mean, you and I have had this conversation about a number of celebrities who exude black pride and know at home you have white women. So it's kind of shocking to me at points. For me personally, knowing what I've done in my own history, can I say that I still carry that black pride? For myself, I carry it every day and that's never going to change. And us as a whole, I still carry that every day and that's never going to change. But could someone question me the same way I question someone else? It would only be valid only because I do it to others.
So do you feel like it's marred, like when you have that white girl, do you feel like that black pride, like, yeah, you have it, but do you feel like it's marred or chipped away or lessened?
Personally, no, only because in the matters of love, my concern is my heart and my heart alone.
Yeah,
And in the times that I dealt, in the situations that I dealt with, let me finish.
I
Like
am.
I said,
You answer your ass when you're done, but yeah, go ahead.
fuck you. So when I get into those situations, when I talk about the situations that I've been into, and when I found myself in this in position that I was in, my only focus was the way that I felt, not the way that I looked or who I was. It was solely emotional.
Hear you. Great. Love that, right? But you're not talking about just your heart. You're also talking about like your black pride and whatnot, right? So the thing is, being able to be pro-black and have this type of love, in my personal view of it, and my personal view of it, I'm leaving it at that. You cannot love everything about your people You cannot love everything about your culture and then go and build that with a person, especially a white person who is our direct, consistent, and ever present oppressors. We see what the fuck is happening right now in this country with that. They just fucking repealed segregation, for crying out loud. But you cannot go and build this with this white person who is going to be the beneficiary of all the things that you may put out into the community and the culture. There is no way you can say you are super pro-black. It's not chipped, it's not marred, it's not any type of affected when you're going home. You're going home to a white woman. When you're having kids, you're having kids with a white woman. When you're bringing money to a white woman. You are building with someone who is not the thing that you claim to have all this pride and all this love in. So I'm not saying you can't have your black pride, but you can't say it hasn't been affected, because every decision you are going to make is going to be affected by your white partner. When you walk the
So
streets, the way that you're going to be regarded is going to be affected by your white partner. If we do get segregation, let's just go extreme, and they cut the fucking country in half, and they say niggas to the left and whiteys to the right, your white woman has to go to the right. What you finna do? Because you're all supposed to love, honor, and cherish your wife, protect her. How are you gonna do that? Who you gonna choose? You gonna go after your white wife, or you gonna come to the community with your people? I'm not asking you to answer, but the fact of the matter is, being put in that situation and having to even weigh the option of choosing her, not saying you should or shouldn't, but having to even weigh that means that your black pride it's conditional, which means that it is not as strong as it was before you got with this white person.
So let me say this, because this was a very big conversation and a very big piece as to why we separated, because she knew in me in the long run I wanted my children to be black. That was a conversation.
Then why wouldn't
That
you
was
be
a
a black woman?
reason. That was something that she knew. She was like, as much as we feel what we feel, we know what we know, when we done what we done, I know what you want going forward and for your future doesn't match here. And that was one of the biggest reasons why we separated. Because we knew, even though we knew what we knew at the moment, we felt what we felt at the moment, what we wanted in the long run was not still gonna match.
Well, you just seem fucking misguided. Then why the fuck are you getting in a
I
relationship with
was, nigga.
somebody?
Shit.
But you
Damn, I
like
was.
you had to be, because what the fuck are you doing? I want my kids to be black, white girl. What? I want my kids to be black, so I'm
First
going
of all,
back to baby with somebody who's not black. Like, shut up.
first of all, fuck you. Shut up.
That doesn't make sense.
That's
I'm
not.
like, Loni, I want my kids to be tall, but I'm 4 feet and my man is 4'8". But I'm just 3 basketball playing. That doesn't make sense.
I think I was with you
They
on the
can
start.
still
Let me
be an
fucking.
athlete.
Fuck
They'll just
wasn't.
be short athletes.
Huh? Well, guess what? All I'm saying is you
Toxins.
didn't have the ingredients for the result that you wanted. You trying to bake a fucking cake with broccoli and goddamn pancake mix. It's not going to work. It's not
I
going to
didn't say I tried. We had a conversation. We
work.
realized the
You
ingredients
got to
didn't
the point.
work.
You got to the point where you would need to have the conversation. That's just stupid. That's just dumb. Like
Time wasted.
no. Time wasted, bad decisions. God damn. That's crazy. Oh, okay. So, okay, here goes another question.
Fuck you.
Because, I just got questions. So I don't have nothing to add. But,
I was about to say, what? The Inquisition.
because I don't, if you ain't black, you cannot be in here. This is for colors only, Negro fucking, like, I'm just saying.
Colors only is
Hey, they should be putting them signs back. You can put one on my forehead. If it ain't black, I don't want it. It's not an option. And it's funny because, like, even when I look at white men, I can acknowledge, like, okay, like, I used to think when the Avengers movies and shit was like popular, right? Chris Evans and the nigga that played Thor, I thought they was cute white men. You know what I mean? And I was like
they
young,
are objectively.
right?
Chris.
But I can acknowledge that they're cute white men without finding them attractive. Do you understand what I'm saying? It just doesn't do it for me. Like, I can't look at them like, oof, I want you to oof. You know what I mean? Or I just, it's like, that's a handsome white guy. But most of the time, unless it's a movie star, I can't look at a white guy and be like, yeah. Like, remember that time we was looking at the dating app, you was going through your peoples, and I'm like, how the fuck do you rate these people? Because you're not in my view. So I don't even know, unless it's like extreme or movie star. I just don't know, like, is this an attractive white white boy to you? And white women never have the fucking same answer, so I still don't know, but I also don't care. You understand what I'm saying? So like for me, it's like black people, first of all, we're fucking beautiful. Like, come on. Everybody wants to be like us. Look at the way they copy everything
And,
we do. And black men got something fucking special about them, okay? They can piss you off. They could be not shit. But when it comes to just the charisma, the fucking the full makeup of them, it's just like, yeah, God knew what he was doing. And why the fuck would I want to go for anything other than that? When it's like the thing here, like don't get me wrong, you know I got my little Asian thing when I have my moments. I can find some Asian people attractive. I've never dated one. I don't think I ever could because black. But if I had to choose another race, it would probably I could look at them and be like, oh, and I might be because I like anime. I don't know, but but black. It's just a thing for me. You know what I mean? So I don't really have much to contribute as far as interracial dating, except saying I will not. I will not. That's my contribution to it.
Fair enough. Next
That's
question.
no, like at this point in my life, and like as these stories come up, and yes, have I dabbled? Absolutely. Yes, my
Dabbled.
most recent.
Dabbled.
Shut the
What
hell up.
we have already assessed that you did not dabble.
you
You
not
dated.
that. You
I
was
Stop.
only had one.
fucking doing a running man and that shit. Cut it out.
Good play. My most recent though, I didn't take seriously. The last one I took seriously was about 5 years ago. Since then, where I've been, I like it at home. It's not that interracial dating is a bad thing. Interracial dating absolutely creates scenarios, questions, and puts people in positions that you wouldn't naturally choose to put yourself in. Plain and simple. But at where I am now, knowing what I understand about myself, there is nowhere I'd rather be than with a black woman. There's nowhere better for me to be than with a black woman. And I'm very comfortable saying that, acknowledging that, and being open about it. But will I say I've dated in other places? Yes. And it will always go right back to what my uncle told me when I was younger. Go date a bunch of different women. You have no idea what you like until you do. Once you do, you'll see what you do like. I
Every
figured
time
out what I like.
you just need to know that dick is not off the table.
Yes, the fuck it is.
You
Why would we
never
have this
tried
conversation?
it. All of a sudden, that could be who.
I'm good, bro. I got one. Like it's a 1v1 over here. I'm good.
Hey,
I'm
you never
happy.
put it in your own ass. That could be your jam. You would.
Wow. I
My
would never
point
even.
is, with that logic, it means that you're open to seeing what you like. Because, like me, I can look at a white man and be like, nah. I can look at a fucking Hispanic Latino and be like, nah. And I don't need to try them on to understand that, nah. You understand? Not
And
you.
that's
Minded.
fine.
I'm just
And I'm
saying,
okay. And
we
I'm okay with saying I don't need to try a penis. I have one of my own and I already know what to do with it. I'm
Jared
good.
on Insecure tried it to make sure he didn't like it. You
What
First of
was
all,
his name again? What was
think
his
it was
name?
Jared. It was Jared.
Okay.
I believe it was. Yeah.
It was
All
in
I'm
college.
saying is,
He did reiterate it was in college.
thank you. Thank
hey,
you, Issa.
all I'm
Thank
saying
you.
is
Thank you,
the option
Issa.
is here. So now I've got a couple of questions. I got a question. So like, all right,
Yeah.
when you're out, with your Caucasians and you're holding their hands or going on dates, whatever the case is, bringing them around your peoples to the barbecues, whatever you do, right? Do you feel like judged or ostracized, like within your own people for those choices that you've made, at all, or
I've felt judged simply for being me as a human by black people and white people. Like I don't think there's a
that is for you?
I don't have a distinguished I can't say that because I've experienced it on both sides at
It's
this
No,
because
point.
I was gonna say. No, I was gonna say, Lonnie.
Not even with a black person on me. Or with a white person on me.
like you yourself, right? Like you grew up around white people, and that shows. You know what I mean? Like it's
But it still doesn't mean people should treat me a type of way, and I think that's my
No,
point.
no,
not at all.
no, Lonnie.
Beat they
My
ass.
My question is, Lonnie, like, who do you feel more scrutiny from, though? Do you feel more scrutiny from, like, let's say you're out, your boyfriend happened to be, your man is white. Do you feel like you get more eyes from white people, or do you get more eyes from black people?
I'm gonna be honest, like I haven't paid attention to any of that kind of stuff.
It's definitely white people.
I mean, I,
When white
I,
men, like white women, be like, "What the fuck?" Like they feel like we cannot have one of theirs the way that they come and take ours. So and so they're and they feel like that means like white women are always in competition with black people, black women. You understand what I'm saying? That's why they get a black man like, oh, because I'm better than us. Shut the fuck up, Becky. You know what I mean? But I guarantee you, if you took the time to pay attention, which is why I asked the microaggressions question, because you don't notice those things because you're so ingrained in it and you're so in yourself. I think that there's definitely moments where you miss microaggressions that may not be familiar microaggressions that like someone like we grew up.
but microaggressions are different from like me just being out and about. Like I'm not picking up on, you pick up on microaggressions from like effectively not people that I guess I feel like you could say people that you're entertaining, people that like you're noticing. Like I'm not picking up on microaggressions on people that are like 20, like what is it? Like I don't know that you can say you experience microaggressions from a distance unless
Girl,
someone's
I get them shits
overtly
from the
pulling
mailman.
attention to you.
What do you mean?
I get
I'm,
microaggressions
I'm
from every individual.
okay. I don't think you get microaggressions from every individual. That might be you have a personality
No,
problem.
if
No, but
they're being
I think
given, no, Mel, give me a second. If
yeah.
they're
Go ahead.
being given, if they're being given, depending on the setting and the scenario, I am now I'm well rounded enough to understand when they may come. So it's not that I'm expecting them, but my eyes for damn sure are open to them. I catch microaggressions from fucking strangers.
Of course, you can catch them from strangers, but you have some sort of interaction to notice it. You're not just like walking by doing your own thing and you're paying attention to
Oh,
microaggressions.
dead ass walking by people. Literally, I watch women lock their cars when I walk past them. I've seen white
Okay.
women switch their purses from one side of their body to the other because I walk down the street. I've been there. I've seen microaggressions from people blocks away, and it's only because I've watched people set themselves up to be in my space. I catch them from everywhere. I understand if those microaggressions have an effect on me. They only have an effect on me if they come from an individual I have a care for, in which now I need to evaluate how much I care about this person. But whether that microaggression comes or not, I catch that shit from fucking everywhere.
You can, yeah. I think, and I will say this.
I think there's
Clearly
a
you grew up
distinct difference
differently.
from micro and macroaggressions because
No,
locking
yeah,
the car door is a pretty big
but there's
moving your
also a thing
pocketbook.
that what you got to understand, Lonnie, is you grew up in a place where you felt
Safe.
safe in community with people that we grew up being told to be on alert for. You understand? Before we were able to know anything else, so it's like a sixth sense there, right? So what Drew is saying, I think it's pretty common amongst a more typical Black American growth. What the fuck am I trying to say?
I would
Like
say
Inner city youth.
experience, maybe. I don't
you,
know.
you know what I mean? So I don't disagree with that at all because it's like you walk into a room, you instantly look for other Black person, you lock eyes, you understand what I'm saying? But that also means you're locking eyes with that Black person, but you're also well aware now you're around people who are not community, people who are more likely to be your enemy. So you put on the I am not in a safe space type of armor, and we all do that, we all do that all the time. And that's kind of leading to the next question that I wanted to ask, because we got to get ready to be done here soon. But like, we constantly carve out spaces for ourselves, Black people, and all people, but we talking about us. We constantly carve out spaces for us. We have the Black Caucus, the Black Poetry Show, the Black this, the Black, we have everything that's like for us. And if it's not specifically for us, that this is more of a Black thing as opposed to a white space. You understand what I'm saying? So like, with that, you're with this white person. Like, how do you feel you're in a safe space with them?
What is I'm not sure I understand the question.
I
If
think
I
it's
were to bring them to the Black Caucus?
no, and within yourself. So like I'm at work, right? If I'm at work, I work with all white people. I'm the only Negro in the entire company. Like that's no
Yeah.
lie. Like crazy, right? So when I'm at work, I'm aware that I am other, and I put on a certain Melanie while I'm there. When I go out with me and you and our two white friends and we go somewhere, it's also a little bit different, especially depending on where we go, because I am not in a place where I can just be 100% me. Like you see, I say nigga all the time. When I'm with them, it might slip out a time or two, but I'm aware. So I draw back. It's a change, right? So if I was dating this white guy, I would do that drawback that I do when we go out for a drink random, once a month or 2 months or something. I'm doing that all the time because now I'm with Fred. And I can't, there's certain things that's just not comfortable to do around him because you are a white man. You might be my white man, but you are a white man. You understand what I'm saying? So that for me, it's like I'm not carving out a safe space because a safe space means I get to relax and just be me. And with Fred, because you're white, I wouldn't be able to do that 100% because I have on my white people armor. Yes, I'm going to call it that.
I so I don't feel that way, and obviously it's because of some
Right,
of those
right.
differences as we already mentioned. Because I don't like. I don't say you like as I'm like struggling to say it now. Like I don't say nigga at all. Like I just don't. It doesn't come naturally to me. My parents
Yeah,
don't say it. It's not like culturally Jamaican. Like that's not a thing. So like unless you grew up here, unless you're like your parents are Jamaican, you're second generation or something like that, or second generation anything, I would say effectively, unless that's a part of like the social environment that you're a part of, it doesn't come natural to me. So I don't feel any type of way. Like people can say it around me. I don't feel compelled to say, you know what I mean? To say it or to speak differently or whatever. The only times that I speak, I don't think I guess that is the difference. Like I don't feel, I understand like customer service voice, whereas like you have to kind of like put on, but like I don't have, for me, it's not like I can be relaxed and be black or be a little less relaxed in another environment. For me, it's just like, this is Loni in a professional space. This is Loni in a casual space with friends. And that space would be the place where I'm more relaxed regardless, but I don't feel like I don't completely turn off in any particular environment. I don't think.
So I understand what you're saying, Mel, and I feel like you and we've done this, especially considering where we've worked, knowing what our setting is at work, but also knowing how I would say how with some people I'm a very different person when you hear me talk to my best friend, when you hear me talk to my family, when you hear me talk at work. You're going to hear professional Drew. You're going to get customer service Drew. And then you're going to get Drew that says nigga and bitch a lot. If you do not know, bitch is my favorite word. And it's only because it's so versatile and it is a noun. But the only reason why you would feel comfortable to go that deep into who you naturally are comfortable with being is only because you're now in a controlled space. If you don't control the space, you're never going to feel that level of comfort. So when you are in a predominantly white space, you will only give up, like you said, like I'm going to put on my white people armor. You're only going to let a fraction of yourself show. There's going to be parts of yourself that you're going to withhold only because you don't control that area. You don't have full control over how things are done, perceived, and executed. So you can't fully let your entire self out. Once you're in a space, regardless of how many of another race there may be, if you are in control of the space, you will comfortably let yourself out. And I feel like that's the only times that I've ever been able to do so.
I mean, I get it. I know my comfort wouldn't lie there. The same way as like certain men, black men, whatever, and that I just wouldn't be comfortable around. I feel like it would be the same way, with this other person, and it would solely be because you are a white person. You know what I mean? And it's like I don't want to be
Yeah.
with somebody where I have to constantly explain certain cultural nuances to you because you ain't black. And
Yeah.
like for me, that's hoops and cartwheels. I just cannot and will not ever, I can't have this moment with you, like with my last person that I was dating. Our first date, we had talked for a while, and our first date, he had mentioned something, and he was like, oh, he mentioned something about his family. He's like drugs, and he's like, it was like the 80s. No, he said it was like, he's like, because you know how it was in the 80s, and I was like,
Yeah.
right, and neither one of us needed to say anything, but we both knew that you was talking about somebody affected by the crack epidemic. Now, if I was on a date with a white man, I would have to explain that shit. Do you understand what I'm saying? I would have to explain, well, in the 80s, the CIA, and crack, so a lot of black people were disenfranchised. I would have to go through all of that. But
Mm-hmm.
I was with, you know, skin folk, kinfolk. We both knew without, all he said was the 80s. Nothing more needed to be said. And to this day, we never had to go into details. And I don't want to
Yeah.
have to constantly be with somebody where I have to constantly go into details about shit that I just expect to be understood. That what's explained, what's understood don't need to be explained. That
Yeah.
is how I feel about culture. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And it's like, it's
Yeah.
one thing to appreciate another person's culture, but and not for nothing, it's like if I dated someone who was Asian or something, Chinese or Japanese, they have a culture for me to learn and understand, just like they would be able to learn and understand our culture. And white
Yeah.
people kind of don't have that same thing. You kind of assimilate to what the world is for them, and then room really isn't made for you. You're expected to be a part of what they got. Seldomly do you bring them over to a black experience. I don't mean like, someone who's assimilated already into their culture and just happen to be black there. There's a difference.
Yeah.
Mm. So just I think last question. When it comes to the interracial dating though, like is there a limit? Like is there that one thing that will like turn you off from dating outside your race and be like, you know what? I'm gonna focus on black people only.
I think for me, I don't have anything that like turns me off immediately. It's that like I'm turned off in general, and my focus is now me and not dating at all. But
You would
I
always
don't.
date what doesn't matter as long as they appeal to you. There's nothing that would be like, yeah, I'm not gonna
If
do that.
they're the things that like are my like I guess icks, or the things that like are so detrimental to my own mental health that like I wouldn't be able to do, like if you have someone that's like racist in your family, like that for me, because family is huge for me. So like if I'm with you and we're involved, then like it's a family affair. Like I don't want, my intention is not to come into your family and your life and break apart whatever y'all have built together. Mine is like, I'm joining yours with mine. Like our people are cool, your people are cool, we're all cool. So like I think my only thing with it is just like if you've got someone who's like racist or like homophobic in your family, like it's just not it
So
for
did
me.
that become a deal breaker after you dealt with somebody who had a racist mom because you stayed when you found that out?
I stayed when I finally called it out with him to address what the issue was. I was also very young at the time, but like it's since that point it has been a thing for me ever since. Like it's because it wasn't something that I that I think is probably the naivety, is the not dealing with it, not experiencing it, because like typically like I was dating when I was like younger, and then I dated the same person for an extended period of time, and that was that person's mom. Like prior to that I hadn't experienced it in a romantic scenario where like there were future plans, you know what I mean? Other than that it would have been like normal stuff, like some kid pulling your hair and thinking it's not your hair type stuff, that you're just like, okay, your parents are probably assholes.
Hmm.
I'd
Like,
say,
I mean,
I'd
but yeah,
say,
that's it for me. The like that added to the list of things. Are you racist?
I'd say my switch over was understanding what really matters to me. Uh, at this point, it is black only. I need to be with a woman who understands how I think, how I feel, and what I experience. And like you just said, Mel, I don't want to have to explain. I want you to understand. And to me, there's no woman that understands black men the way that black women do. There's no other woman who completely can understand us the way that we do, that can grasp us the way that we do, that can be there for us the way that we do, the way that we need, and nobody who can do the same for them. So it's black only after truly understanding what mattered to me most.
Hmm.
But then what's secondary? Because not all black women, like I'm a black woman. That doesn't mean I know I don't know your full experience because
But yeah,
culturally I wasn't raised in the same environment. You know what I'm saying?
but that the thing is, it's like whatever the nuances within it, you would be black. So it's like, oh, sure, maybe he doesn't like women that, have tattoos or women this, it doesn't matter. All of that's only going to be applied to black women. It's like you might have
Yeah,
everything that I want, but if you're white, you don't get to participate in this contest. You know what I mean? So then
yeah,
you just find your person. Now you're just dating in the fucking terrible pool like all the rest of us. You know what I mean? Like I don't
Welcome.
for me, like historical aspects matter entirely too much for me because they are relevant, they're present.
yeah.
And it's like I don't want to date somebody, build a life, a family with somebody who your great granddaddy might have owned my great granddaddy. You understand what I'm saying?
Valid as fuck.
I don't want a chance running into those racist family members on your other side because they're there. I don't want to, I don't want to sit there and have to have confused mixed children because they don't know what they are because their skin is this color and they're raised in this and people don't like them there. I'm not doing all of that. Like that for me is just too much. But then it's also like, white people historically hate black people. Like, and I'm saying historically as in it goes back far, not that it was only back then. You understand? Because
Yeah.
they today, we literally live in a society where fucking laws are created so that we won't get discriminated against. And now they're being dismantled so that we will. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's like I cannot
Yeah.
my boyfriend Tom over here, and it's like, oh, your president is fucking rolling back anything DEI, and to him DEI just means black. Your president is rolling back bans on segregation so that we can have colored only fountains and shit once again. And it's like now I have to navigate that within my interracial relationship. And I'm sorry, but this make believe man who doesn't exist is not worth all of the extra effort it's going to take. Dating is hard enough, and in having to add that factor in it, I feel like the juice is not worth the squeeze. More power to everyone who does. I'm not the girl that sees a black man like, ugh, you know what I mean? Like, but I will never partake, and I
To
will
each is their own.
love black
To
love.
each is their own. To each of their own. People are allowed to have their preference. In all honesty, I agree with you. I feel like if I were to narrow down my pool, I'm only making my process in this hard ass process a hell of a lot fucking easier. Like honestly, like I don't knock anybody who chooses to date interracially. I don't knock anybody who chooses not to. At this point in time, we are all going through the shit. Pick whatever the hell it is that makes you happy. Please do. Because odds are you're picking up something nobody else want. You're leaving what I want out there. Like at this point, that's how comfortable it needs to be. But let's alleviate the headache. If you know for a fact, and yeah, I may have been punching it in a weight class that was counterproductive to my own situation. But like you said, if I was being a fuckboy at the time, I was being a fuckboy at the time. I knew what I was doing. But
Oh,
if
he's
I'm
so
going to be,
dismissive, ain't he? Oh, he likes to minimize and dismiss.
Like,
I
I
just,
don't understand. Do you realize
I'm not
there's
dismissing
still
the fact.
women? There's still women that you dated and you spent time with.
Yes,
You out
there.
here.
Yeah.
But
Well,
if I told you out the gate that I'm out here, I'm out here for a fun time, not a long time, and I'm being actively single, then you
I
chose these
don't think
cards
you
too
were
as well, Shorty.
expressing that.
I just
Actually,
feel
I
like
was.
stop fucking minimizing it because you had that serious relationship 5 years ago, and the epiphany about the black woman came way more than that. That's all I'm gonna say. Stop fucking capping.
I
Yeah.
think what I have to also now take it back because like prior to the Trump presidency, the first one, I think I don't.
Say that
we're
shit.
in a really dark time. Prior to the Trump presidency, I think like politics was always like big in my family, and that would have been like a huge deal breaker. I if I knew now what I knew then, like if I was more, you know what I mean? Like I've never dated anyone that I think would have voted for Trump or anyone that has ideologies like that. And I think that's come down to friendships, that's come down to like everything. So like to go back to your question, besides overt racism, policies that also directly impact me, like if you were voting in a way that's like even against your better interest, then I wouldn't be able to talk to you. And
Okay.
apparently there was black men who voted for that man too.
You know, I blocked one fucking big doofus, but
Like
like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, whatever. But I think we're at time. So thank you guys for coming and letting me be all in your business because I was. But thank you, Loni. Thank you, Drew. And we will see you guys next time.
No
all
worries.
right. Thank you.
Well, that was our episode for the day. Curiosity will always be there, but I just want to end it by saying feel free to love who you love, okay? But as usual, be sure to like, share, follow, subscribe. We are on Instagram at Related Conversations Podcast. We are on TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook at Related Conversations. We will soon be having Spotify. It's up, but ain't nothing on it. There'll be something soon. And if you want to be a guest on Related Conversations, please hit us in the inbox on Instagram at Related Conversations Podcast. And we're trying to get 100 followers in 2025. So please, please, please subscribe to our YouTube channel to help us meet our goal. We're a quarter of the way there. Thank you guys. So until next time, chat later.